Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Red Circle Summit. And I want to tell you today, this interview is one of the ones that I'm very excited for. We are ending the taboo, right? We're changing the world. And that tagline came about because, in a big part, this charity. So everyone who buys this summit is going to be donating to the charity Days for Girls. And I'm sitting here today with their chief operating officer, Leah, who's going to deep dive into the charity with us.
Pleasure to be here. Excited about this.
Not only thank you for being here and doing this and taking some time to do this with us, but thank you for just doing the work that you're doing. This is amazing. And one of the general themes of the summit, and a lot of the women that have spoke have even said this, and our one brave man, the rising tide lifts all boats. Mm-hmm. And that is really, it seems like, a central theme to Days for Girls.
Yeah, absolutely. Celeste Mergens is the founder of the organization. And when she founded Days for Girls back in 2008, she set out with this really audacious goal: every girl, everywhere, period. And that seems kind of ridiculous when you think about it, when you think about the fact that there are 1.5 billion women of reproductive age, and a huge number of those women are living on less than $1.25 a day. We're talking 300 million women. That's a huge number to reach. But when you consider the fact that really all we need to do is provide those women with sustainable access to hygiene solutions, it's not that crazy. It's just providing women pads and enabling them to live their lives without interruption. That's it. And Celeste really likes to point out the fact that there are a huge number of problems in this world that are incredibly difficult to solve. We're not inventing the next smallpox vaccine here. This is pads, people. It's about as basic as you can possibly get. So, if Coca-Cola can figure out how to get the same bottle of carbonated sugar water to the last mile in Ethiopia, certainly we can figure out how to do that for pads, right?
Oh my God, I love it. Yes, yeah. So true. And it does, one of the things that I really like about your charity and the organization is the fact that we don't think we have as much power as we really do. Mm-hmm. We think things are hard when they don't really have to be.
This is completely solvable within our lifetimes. It's a single problem. And if we focus on it and we just say, look, here's what needs to be done, of course we could solve this. It's just, it's pretty low-hanging fruit. And at the same time, it's something that's really fundamental to a whole lot of other things, because it ties into one of the things that we value the most highly, which is our time. Mm-hmm. And if you think about the fact that a week of life is being taken away from millions of women and girls around the world, think about the social and economic impact that has on a community level, on a country level. We're holding back half of our workforce for half a month, regardless of whether women are going to work in and around their homes or whether they're going to go into an office. It doesn't make sense for us to hamstring half of the world's population simply because of biology, simply because we will experience menstruation. It just doesn't.
Yeah, I love it. Mm-hmm. So one of the questions that I'm asking all of the speakers, and thank you for being game here, is what do you think of when you hear the word taboo?
Well, I probably think of something a little different than a lot of people because I work in this field all the time. So I think of the fact that the word taboo comes from a Polynesian word, tapua, which literally means menstruation. Mm-hmm. So the most taboo thing in the world. And it's crazy to think, but it also makes sense, right? Yeah. That the origins of the word taboo have to do with menstruation. So, that's what I think about, which is a very literal thing. Yeah. But probably the second thing I think about is the fact that it's kind of fun to be in a position where we can break through taboos. My Rosie the Riveter gene comes to the surface, right? And I think about gosh, what a privilege to be living in a time and place where we can look at these, where we can fearlessly shout from the rooftops, hey, I am woman, hear me roar, right? And that there is nothing that I am ashamed about in being myself. There is nothing that I have to hide to the world. So I think about that. I get excited because I think about how much freedom we have. And yes, there is embarrassment. Yes, there is shame that we have to overcome. Each of us will have challenges in our own lives. But when you think about the fact that I'm a woman living in the United States in 2017, as are you, as are probably most of our listeners. We have so much agency. We have so much ability to move mountains. And I just get really excited about that, about the fact that, we can take to the streets in whatever form that looks like and say, okay, this ends now, and I'm going to be a voice and a lightning bolt for change.
I love that. Yes, that is such good and inspiring talk. We do. We have so much more power than we really give ourselves credit for. And there's resistance there in a way because of the taboos that surround women and just keeping us quiet and using your voice in a way is its own taboo. So I love that. I often, when somebody asks me about taboos, I often think, well, it's one of the examples in the dictionary is a woman's menstruation is like one of the how to use it in a sentence examples.
Wow.
And I remember looking up the word taboo when I first started being the period coach and going, okay, my goal here is to end the taboo around menstruation. And I looked it up and I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me, right?
Yeah.
Like it's an example in the dictionary. So
yeah,
it really is steeped into our culture in a big, big, big way. So we don't have a small challenge ahead of us, but we're doing it. Yeah. And I love how the charity comes at it from such an easy answer.
Yeah. It's pretty basic. It's basic and fundamental. I think it's important to distinguish between those two things because sometimes we lump them together. It's basic in the sense that it's easy. It's a basic need: food, shelter, water for women, hygiene products, absolutely. But it's also fundamental because if you don't have it, then girls are missing school and women can't go to work, and you also feel really badly about yourself. It's a way to keep women small because it's this very convenient monthly reminder that there is something about us that we should feel ashamed about, right? And if you think about, my background is actually Middle East politics. So, I've spent a lot of time thinking about, big documents that are coming from, name some intergovernmental agency, right? Or from the UN, what have you, right? These big overarching things that declare universal human rights. Those are so important, right? But it's even better if we can bring that top-down approach and connect it with the bottom-up approach. Because if I'm a woman living in some remote corner of Guatemala or Nigeria or what have you, I might be aware of the fact that there's something like the UN Declaration of Human Rights. But on a really basic and fundamental level, how do I believe that? How do I believe that I am worthy of rights and dignity if there's something so convenient that's, reminding me every single month that there is something about me that I should feel ashamed of, that deserves to be hidden? That's not okay. That's not okay that I would think that, right? So menstruation, and when we talk about menstruation, when we provide women with what they need, it's a way to shatter taboos, but it's also really fundamentally about empowerment, about women just taking ownership of every piece of who they are.
Yeah, so true. So true. I love that. So one of the things that really attracted me into the organization in the first place was the education component. So I really liked the idea of how just giving girls the ability to go to school.
Yeah.
Mind blower.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I get that I come from a first world space and that the
Mm-hmm.
idea of not being able to graduate from high school because I had access to sanitary products like doesn't
Mm-hmm.
even come up, but
Yeah.
that's like a real thing all the way around the world.
Yeah, it's pretty big, and the data that we have that's come in on this in the last couple of years is also really rich and very cool. I mean, it's obviously not cool that the issue exists, but
Right.
it's really easy to see that connection between a lack of access and missing school. Yeah, I mean, if you think about what are the things that I need to go to school, it's certainly books, it's paper, it's pencils, it's uniform, it's some kind of means of transportation to get there, and yeah, it's pads so I can stay in class. So it's all part of the package. And Days for Girls addresses education on a couple different levels. I mean, we allow girls to stay in class because we're providing access to pads, but we also include health education in our distributions because we recognize that this is actually something really powerful, giving a girl a hygiene kit. And that if we include the health education component that's about menstruation, that's also about how to use a kit, that can actually be a gateway for really, really important conversations. It is a catalyst. So if you think about the number of taboos around a woman's body or how difficult it is to talk about women's health in so many corners of the world, including in many places in our own country, just having something that's really basic, that's just about biology, is a really, really great way to open that conversation. And that conversation can lead in a lot of different ways. We can talk about safety, we can talk about leadership, we can talk about different roles in a community. It's very interesting to witness just where each community wants to lead that conversation and what people want to include. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, I believe that. It's in what you just said there. I was thinking about it, and we had a pretty subpar health education, even in a perfectly fine public school.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't learn that there was more to menstruation than just bleeding once a month
Mm-hmm.
until I think I may have learned about ovulation in
Mm-hmm.
sex ed.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely didn't know what the science of ovulation was. I didn't know about fertility, the
Yeah.
times. I didn't realize that you were always in some phase of your menstrual cycle every single day.
Yeah. It's kind of remarkable when you think about how complex women's bodies are, that we are going through this cycle every single month for 40 years of our lives. It's a lot. Yeah.
So when
It's
you're
amazing.
distributing these pads and kits, I guess, what kind of menstrual pads are you sending out / where are they going or how are they getting there?
Yeah. Great question. So we make a Days for Girls kit, and we have a couple different iterations of the kit. But the kit contains the full kit contains washable pads as well as underwear, soap, a washcloth, 2 Ziploc plastic bags for washing and storage, and a couple other things. And all of those components are really designed so that you have everything you need, whether you are in the United States and you're just really interested in being environmentally friendly, or you're in a low resource setting. The kit will provide you what you need for up to 3 years. So, because everything is washable, right?
Yeah.
And the pads themselves are actually made of 2 different components. And I'm so sorry, I didn't know I was going to demonstrate. But you guys can go to daysforgirls.org, where there are many places where you can see a full illustration of what's in a kit and all the components. But the pads themselves are a really unique design because they're a shield, which is what actually attaches to your underwear. And then there's the liner that goes inside, and that's the absorbent part. So a shield looks a lot like a regular disposable pad with wings. It's just that picture on the ends of the wings, there are snaps instead of anything sticky. So the 2 wings will snap underneath your underwear. right? And then at the other two ends of the shield, the ones that are facing towards your belly button and towards your back, there are pockets. And so those hold the liner snugly in place. And a liner just looks like a washcloth, and it trifolds like a letter. And then you put it in the shield. So the two pockets hold the liner in place. And there are several reasons why we designed it with two parts. The biggest one is that when you take the liner out after you've used it and you wash it and you hang it in your front yard, it doesn't look like a pad. It looks like a washcloth, right? I mean, would we want to hang something out in our front yard that looks like a pad? Probably not, right? So women are much more comfortable using it and drying it outside, and that means it lasts longer, right? And the other thing is that if you have the absorbent part and the shield part all sewn together, then that means it's going to be really thick and it'll take more water to wash and it'll take more time to dry, right? So when we separated them into two pieces, it cut down on both those things.
So smart.
Yes. So the Days for Girls kit has been through 28 different iterations, and each of those are really informed by feedback from women and girls all over the world. So you asked where we distribute these. These kits have gone to over 100 countries. We've reached over 640,000 women and girls. Yeah, which is pretty awesome. We haven't reached them all yet, though, so we've still got a ways to go. But yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah, and the last thing about the pads is that they are all very brightly colored, so that camouflages stains.
Nice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny. It sounds very similar to my first pads when I discovered that disposable pads are just disgusting and I hated them. So in the late 90s, I discovered the Keeper menstrual cup and cloth pads. And my cloth pads were two parts. The snaps and then the liner that came out. And it was just like a split in the middle. You just sort of slid the liner in, and then it was great. And those things lasted for freaking ever. I mean, I'm not a heavy bleeder, so I guess take that into an account. But man, I think those pads lasted me for like 10 years. Like a really long time.
Yeah.
They weren't maybe so absorbent towards the end, but they worked.
Yeah. And I mean, we regularly receive reports of our kits lasting longer than 3 years, but we say 3 years, just to be safe.
Sure. Gotta head into those bets.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think to your point about you thinking of disposable pads as gross, that's awesome that was your reaction, because I feel like so often it's the flip. People say, oh, washable pads. Oh, I don't want to do that. And the thing is, hey, maybe we've been thinking about this wrong the whole time. Maybe it just makes more sense to use cloth.
Yeah, I just thought about like, I'm throwing this thing away. I'm throwing several of these things away, or even like tampons. Tampons always just felt like they were ripping parts of me out, which turns out that they were. I didn't realize that they were so abrasive, but it just always felt like that to me. So I hated using them. And then pads were like diaper burn central because of the plastic. So it was always like, I just felt gross with them. And then there's all these plastic things. And I was like, this has just got to be crappy for the earth. Like, there's no way that this is okay. So
totally. And that's actually how Days for Girls started. So Celeste, the founder of Days for Girls, she was working with an orphanage in the outskirts of Nairobi, and the population had swelled because of all this post-election violence. And so the 2008 election in Kenya was not a quiet one. So there were all these people in this orphanage, and they were trying to figure out how to meet basic needs. And then she realized that girls didn't have hygiene products, and they were sitting on cardboard, for several days each month because of that. And so that inspired the first iteration, which was, hey, let's just get a nonprofit to donate a whole bunch of disposable pads, right? I mean, no one was talking about this issue at the time. There wasn't a whole lot to go on.
Right.
So, I mean, of course, she immediately realizes, hey, when you distribute disposable pads and people don't have a place to dispose of them, that is a problem. And so, I mean, girls were rolling them up and putting them in chain link fences or between roof tiles. And of course, that just adds to the stigma of menstruation, which is completely the opposite of what we want, right? So then they said, okay, well, we need plan B. What does that look like?
Yeah, I can definitely see how that train went down through the station.
Yes. Ooh.
Right. Got it.
But we got there.
Came out in the right space. So
yes.
And this just goes to show viewers that the first round is not always the answer. Sometimes
it's not always the answer. Yeah. But just come up with something, put it out there, listen a lot to whatever people have to tell you about it, and then do the next thing.
Yeah. So good. Yeah. That's such a good point right there. Like whatever it is that you feel passionately about or see that need for, just do it, get started, and know that the first round is not going to be perfect.
And then you can fail forward and have something really excellent. So,
totally. We're all about failing faster over here.
Yes.
Just we need, and that was the thing also about the education component is like, we need our girls, like we need solutions to problems, and it's the girls out there that aren't getting their education that might have those solutions. And just worldwide, we need solutions coming from every corner of the planet, and it needs to come from the girls.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to recognize that every woman is an expert in her own life. I am an expert at being a woman from Seattle, Washington, right? A 32-year-old Kenyan goat herd has 32 years more experience at being a Kenyan goat herd than I do. So I'm going to defer to her expertise.
A little personal. Tell us about a taboo that you've dealt with in your own personal life.
So I'm going to say this one because I feel like it's very timely. It doesn't really have to do with menstruation.
Totally fine.
I was listening to something the other day on Krista Tippett's On Being. I don't know if you guys listen to that podcast, but it's one of my favorites. So she was talking to a guy named Ibu Patel, and he was talking about this practice that we have of scalping, which is where we find it's not actual scalping, but it's where we find something that we don't like about someone, and we tack it up on our wall for all to see, and we shout across the internets, across the theater, whatever it is, I disagree with this person, and I can't stand everything about them because of this thing, right? And I was just thinking, gosh, that is so true. We are doing that. We are scalping people. And I wish that we wouldn't. And I wish that we could see that politics, like so many other things in the world, certainly like menstruation, is something personal. And we are a sum total of our stories. I have a story, you have a story, everyone listening to this has a story, and politics weaves into that. I would like to think that I would still vote for whoever I voted for had I been born in rural Texas, but we'll never know, So I think it's, for me, the connection between that and between menstruation is, I think that it's really, really important that we dig beneath the surface and that we see people for the sum total that they are, that we don't reduce them to one aspect of themselves, whether that's the fact that they are a woman and that they will experience menstruation, whether it's because who they cast their ballot for. We are so complex as individuals, and our society is infinitely richer if we can speak to that and if we can recognize people for who they are, right? And that's not to say that we don't all have a lot to work on, that, there are plenty of things, plenty of beliefs that could probably be changed. We can all step into better versions of ourselves. It's simply to say that I wish we wouldn't be so quickly to reduce each other to one aspect of who we are.
Which to me also is like education.
Yes.
Having more access to education and having more real facts and knowledge presented so that we can actually come to conclusions on our own without having to feel like we need to rely on somebody else's opinions or whether they be good or bad.
Yeah.
I love that.
conversations are important.
Yes,
It's good to have.
totally. Definitely overarching theme of the summit.
Yeah. Maybe the thing to sum that up is, let's not be afraid to have the tough conversations.
Yeah.
Right. Regardless of who that's with or what the conversation is about, we can be brave enough to again step into the highest versions of ourselves and hold that space for other people.
Yes, totally. And this is such a powerful tenet, I guess you could say, of the red tent. Having a space where you can go and have a conversation that is really a conversation. It's a safe space. It's a safe container. It's a great conversation. It's a place to learn.
Absolutely. And, I think is a conversation worthy of our lifetimes, a conversation that we should never seek to end. Again, to circle back around to how much power and how much agency we have. I mean, if we look at women through the ages, right? The great thing is, regardless of how much we speak out about something today, we're not going to get burned at the stake. It might feel like that on Twitter, right? But we're not actually going to get burned at the stake, and we're not going to get thrown in a prison. And we still have a country where we are allowed to say what we want to say. We have free speech, right? So let's do it. Let's, seize every moment and take advantage of that incredible opportunity.
Yeah, so true. One of the things that I really found interesting in the conversation we were having before we hit record was the idea that the red tent is big enough to cover the whole world.
Yeah.
I love that sentence that you said earlier, and I feel like, oh my God, yes.
Yeah, I think I love the idea of thinking of menstruation not as this thing that gets shoved off to the side that's in some way ancillary to who we are, but rather flipping it and recognizing that it is this universal uniter among women across the world, that practically every single woman and girl on earth is going to menstruate. And that is something that unites us regardless of where we are, where we live, what our skin color is, sexual orientation, religion. We will all have this. And Days for Girls really seeks to create a big tent in the fact that this is an issue that brings a lot of people together. We have women of all ends of the political spectrum. We have women who have different stories or different reasons why they're interested in this, but they all come with one thing, saying, this is important, and I want to do this for other women and girls like me in the world so that everyone can have what she deserves. And so the red tent, I think it's time for us to recognize that the world is at a stage where we can embrace the red tent everywhere. And certainly in countries where it's easier for us to do that, where women have more rights, we should hold that space and continue to be loud so that other corners of the world can stand up as well, right? But yes, because we have the opportunity to speak, we should.
Oh, yes, so true. So true. I love the idea of how menstruation is in and of itself a unifying power. We love it.
But I think the key to that is it starts with us, right? And it's very easy in the United States also for women to hide the fact that they are menstruating, despite the fact that I can walk into any Walgreens and there's an entire aisle of products for me to choose from. Most of the time I'm still going to see ads that have blue liquid poured on a white pad and don't really make any sense, right? I mean, there's still something about discretion. There's something about, oh, okay, it's fine if you have what you need, but don't talk about it. Don't talk about it, right? So yeah, I mean, if we can just normalize it, if we can embrace that within ourselves, then certainly we can hold that space for others. But we need to do that self-reflection and think about whether this is a way that we are hamstringing ourselves, whether we're silencing ourselves in any way about this issue, because we can't hold space for others unless we recognize that within ourselves.
Oh, amazing. I love that. So is there anything else about Days for Girls that we should know about? that we haven't already covered?
We're very collaborative in the spirit of the Big Ten. We really seek to provide the tools for people to go out and do this in the world. And Days for Girls gets kits into the world through two different ways. One is on the volunteer side, where you can become a team or an individual, and you can start sewing the kits, or you can assemble kits, or you can raise money to get supplies for kits, what have you. And then the other side is social enterprise. So we are seeking to economically empower women across the world. They're creating kits locally and then they're selling them. And we're moving in a lot of places more towards the enterprise model, where there are viable markets and where there's the possibility of those programs being self-sustaining. I mean, you guys can probably imagine having both sides enables us to meet a lot of different needs and work in a lot of different places, right? So my last thing would just be an invitation to you all, whether you want to host a fundraiser, whether you want to start a team, whether you want to sponsor a micro enterprise, whatever it is that you're passionate about. We would love to have you. If you have a connection to a hotel that can donate a ton of bars of soap, or you happen to work for Ziploc or what have you, I'm just putting it out there because they're so many different ways that we can lift up women and girls.
Oh my God, I love that. That's so fantastic. And again, this summit, I'm donating 50% of everything that comes into me to you guys. So, and I'm definitely interested in some other ways in which I can, myself, my business, whatever, can help support this cause, because the freaking work you guys are doing is amazing. And
love it.
I really love the worldwide aspect to it. I really, our speakers are from various parts of the world, primarily Australia and the United States, a little New Zealand, a little Asia, a little of this and that and the other. But
awesome.
But I mean, I love the idea of it being a very worldwide summit, and hopefully our viewers are from all over the place as well. And I really wanted to be able to do something that was a worldwide result.
Love
and this is it. Big time.
Love
Super big time.
Yes.
Thank you.
And thank you. And the last thing I'll say is just how grateful we are to everyone who's viewing the summit and for your support. It's just a really, really wonderful community to be a part of. And we're just really grateful for the opportunity and for the fact that you found us. It's great.
That was a fun adventure, a little rabbit hole that I went down in the charity world, but I'm glad I landed here. So once again, guys, if you have not purchased the summit, keep in mind you get all of the speakers for free forever to listen to. You get the audio files, the video files, you get all of the freebies that I've given out. There's no time limit on them. You'll also get other freebies because I'm just I'm that guy. I like sending out stuff. So when I have like videos or something that I feel like you should all have, I'm going to post them onto your membership page. So not only do you get all of the goodies from the summit, but you know that 50% of what you are donating here goes directly to Days for Girls. So good, be a little selfish, get something for yourself, and know that while you're being a little selfish, you're also helping girls around the world.
Absolutely.
It's a total win-win-win. Those are my favorite kind, the win-win-win.
Yes. Perfect. Sounds good.
Awesome. So guys, check your email for all the information. You can click the buttons, find out more. Feel free to ask questions because I will happily ask them in turn and give you back the answers. So if you do have any questions for Days for Girls, let me know. I will be happy to put them on.
Love to answer them.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who is watching the recording later on.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you guys.
Thanks. Bye.